I'm going to read to you out of the book because I thought it'd be a little more interesting to watch a video than it would be to just sit and listen to me read, hopefully. Um, I'm going to be starting on page 126 in your textbook, and I'm going to read all the way to page 130. You're going to need a book so you can follow along. So if I were you, I'd go ahead and pause this video, grab your book, and be open and ready to go. All right, I can tell that you paused and you're ready, so here we go. Sparta. I'm going to move this a little bit. You can see. Perfect. Here we go. Okay. The Spartans focused on military skills to control the people they conquered. As you read in the last section, Sparta was founded by the Dorians, Greeks who invaded the Peloponnesus in the Dark Age. Like other city-states, Sparta needed more land as it grew, but its people did not set up colonies. Instead, they conquered and enslaved their neighbors. The Spartans called their captive workers helots. This name comes from the Greek word for capture. So if you remember, the helots are kind of like slaves. Why was the military so important? Spartans feared that the helots might someday rebel. As a result, the government firmly controlled the people of Sparta and trained the boys and men for war. At age 7, boys left their family to live in barracks. They were harshly treated to make them tough. The Greek historian Plutarch describes life for the Spartan boys. After they were 12 years old, they were no longer allowed to wear any undergarment. They had one coat to serve them a year. They lodged together in little bands upon beds made of the reeds or grasses, which they were to break off with their hands without a knife. Plutarch's Spartan discipline. At age 20, Spartan men entered the regular army. The men remained in military barracks for more than 10 years. They ate all of their meals in dining halls with other soldiers. A typical meal was a vile-tasting dish called black broth. Pork boiled in animal blood. Salt and vinegar. No joke. Spartans returned home at age 30, but stayed in the army until age 60. They continued to train for combat. They expected to either win on the battlefield or die, but never surrender. One Spartan mother ordered her son to come home carrying your shield or being carried on it. Girls in Sparta were trained in sports, running, wrestling, and throwing the javelin. They kept fit to become healthy mothers. Wives lived at home while their husbands lived in the barracks. As a result, Spartan women were freer than other Greek women. They could own property and go where they wanted. Woohoo, I'm all about that. What was Sparta's government like? The Spartan government was an oligarchy. Remember we talked about that? Like that's where a small group of people who are wealthy run things. 2 kings headed a council of elders. The council, which included 28 citizens over age 60, presented laws to an assembly. All Spartan men over the age of 30 belonged to the assembly. They voted on the council's laws and chose 5 people to be ephors each year. The ephors enforced the laws and managed tax collection. To keep anyone from questioning the Spartan system, the government discouraged foreign visitors. It also banned travel abroad for any reason but military ones. It even frowned upon citizens who studied literature or the arts. The Spartans succeeded in keeping control over the helots for nearly 250 years. However, by focusing on military training, the Spartans fell behind other Greeks in trade. They also knew less about science and other subjects. However, their soldiers were especially strong and swift. The Spartans would play a key role in defending Greece. So basically, they didn't want people to come in because then they were worried they would like their way better and they would start to rebel or something. So they did not like that. Sorry, my hair keeps getting in my way. It's driving me nuts. Turn the page. Now, Athens. Unlike Spartans, Athenians were more interested in building a democracy than building a military force. Athens lay northeast of Sparta, at least a 2-day trip away. The 2 city-states were also miles apart in their values and systems of government. What was life like in Athens? Athenian citizens raised their children very differently from Spartans. In Athenian schools, one teacher taught boys to read, write, and do arithmetic. Another teacher taught them sports. A third teacher taught them to sing and play a stringed instrument called the lyre. This kind of education created well-rounded Athenians with good minds and bodies. At age 18, boys finished school and became citizens. Athenian girls stayed at home. Their mothers taught them spinning, weaving, and other household duties. Only in some wealthy families did girls learn to read, write, and play the lyre. When they married, women stayed home to keep house and to teach their own daughters. A budding democracy. Early Athens, like other city-states, was ruled by landowning nobles during the 600s BC. An assembly of all citizens existed, but it had few powers. Actually, the government was an oligarchy, as in Sparta. Around 600 BC, the Athenians began to rebel against the nobles. Most farmers owed the nobles money, and many sold themselves into slavery to pay their debts. Over and over, farmers demanded an end to all debts, along with land for the poor. In 594 BC, the nobles turned to the one man both sides trusted, a noble named Solon. Solon canceled all the farmers' debts and freed those who had become slaves. He also allowed all male citizens to participate in the assembly and law courts. A council of 400 wealthy citizens wrote the laws, but the assembly had to pass them. Solon's reforms were popular among the common people. However, the farmers continued to press Solon to give away the wealthy nobles' land. This he refused to do. After Solon, there were 30 years of turmoil. A tyrant named Pisistratus seized power in 560 BC. He won the support of the poor by dividing large estates among landless farmers. He also loaned money to poor people and gave them jobs building temples and other public works. So, even though Athens started out as an oligarchy, they ended up being a democracy. Because they started to become a democracy because people were rebelling against the way things were. On page 130. The most important leader after Pisistratus died was Clisthenes. When he came to power in 508 BC, he reorganized the assembly to play the central role in governing. As before, all male citizens could belong to the assembly and vote on laws. However, members had new powers. They could debate matters openly, hear court cases, and appoint army generals. Most importantly, Clisthenes, it's a weird name, created a new council of 500 citizens to help the assembly carry out daily business. The council proposed laws, dealt with foreign countries, and oversaw the treasury. Athenians chose the members of the council each year in a lottery. They believed this system was fairer than an election, which might favor the rich. Clisthenes' reforms did not bring all Athenians into political process. Non-citizens, which included all women, foreign-born men, and slaves, were still excluded. Nonetheless, Clisthenes is credited with making the government of Athens a democracy. Okay, so it is a democracy, but they didn't let women vote and they didn't let slaves vote, so not everybody got to vote. Just saying. But anyway, okay, so kind of what we know about the difference between Sparta. Sparta focused on war. Athens didn't so much. Sparta were very physical people. Athens, they were physical, but not quite the way that Sparta was. They studied literature and things like that too, but Athens really didn't. And the women in Sparta had a little more freedoms than they did in Athens because the men were off preparing to fight. All right, so go ahead and go back to Google Classroom and it should tell you what you should do next. I think it might be reading something else. I'm not sure. But anyway, have a great day, guys.